This is the J. Scott Outdoors podcast on Western big game hunting and fishing, and I'm your host, Jay Scott. I live and breathe hunting and fishing, spending half the year in the field enjoying God's creation. I hope you'll enjoy hearing about our adventures. Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we've got Jeff Lester from Hunt Hard Outfitters based out of Eager, Arizona. Jeff's operation is a full-service outfitter for Arizona and New Mexico. He also has a Hunt Hard clothing and gear line. He's got all kinds of stuff going on. He buys Landowner Tags. He kills big critters, and I know the guy loves to hunt. Jeff, I'm excited to talk to you today. How are you doing?
Great, Jay. Great.
I know you've been traveling. You just got off a plane. You've been overseas been traveling, been up for 29 hours. So this ought to be a great interview. We probably will be wandering all over with being up for 29 hours.
Yeah, I'm a little cloudy right now, so I've been very, very busy.
That's awesome. Jeff, I want to talk to you about your operation in Arizona and New Mexico. What would you say percentage-wise, how much business do you do percentage-wise in New Mexico compared to Arizona in regards to hunting?
I would say it's probably 60-40. We probably do 40% Arizona, 60% New Mexico. It could be a little higher in New Mexico. It just depends because of landowner tags and availability of hunts. Makes it possible for us to take people that, basically want to hunt every year.
And that makes it nice because in Arizona, being an outfitter like I am in Arizona, you're totally reliant on the draws. And a lot of times you can have a lot of people that want to hunt with you, but the reality is sometimes it takes them 15 or 20 years just to get a tag. Before we dive into it, Jeff, give me a little bit of background of yourself and your start to hunting and your start in the outfitting business.
Well, I started hunting at a young age. My father, raised me in the outdoors, hunting and fishing in the White Mountains. Was born and raised in Eager, Arizona. My father was from the area, and the man that raised him, my granddad, was a game and fish officer from Clifton to Holbrook in the 40s and 50s, and of course, grew up with that, with the background of hunting and fishing, of course, in the White Mountains. Started outfitting in 2000 or 1999, basically, is when I started my own outfit, Hunt Hard Outfitters. I worked for some of the biggest outfitters in the business prior to that, and kind of forged my own path by going out on my own and booking hunters, and I was pretty much hunt hard for years. I did a real personalized outfitting service where, because of landowner tags and things, I would book my own hunters for every hunt. So I would pretty much book myself out for 14 hunts a year. And that worked great, and as time went on, we started expanding, and I'm tied in and networked with a number of some of the best guides in the state, and it just was smart my goal always was kind of to approach outfitting with a different approach, and that was to take as many guides as we could but the quality would still stay high. We didn't want to lack in the quality. So, and that's what we've been able to do. This year we're taking close to 60 hunters across Arizona and New Mexico. We have 9 full-time guides that work with myself. And like last year we took 35 bulls over 340. That's Arizona and New Mexico, of course. Killed the biggest bull in the state last year in Arizona on a late rifle hunt. So We've been able to be successful for a number of reasons, and one of those is keeping small camps. It's helped us to, keep, you can have more than 4 hunters in a given week, but we try not to go any more than 4 hunters in one specific unit at the time. So,
would you say that your bread and butter units in Arizona are 1 in 27?
Yeah, 1 in 27. We do a little in 3A, 3C. I quit hunting 3A, 3C as much after the fire. They beat the unit up pretty hard. A lot of tag numbers. A lot of the quality left the unit. It's come back a little bit now, but it's nothing like it was, 10 years ago. And I mainly stay in 1 in 27 because that's what I know really, really well. And it keeps me close to New Mexico. Springerville Eager is 15 minutes from the New Mexico border, and we hunt all of the Gila wilderness and 15, 17, 13, 12, all the stuff right there close to the house. So it keeps us, that 150 miles around Springerville and Eager, Arizona and New Mexico. But we try not to. We do. We have done a few hunts around other parts in the state, southern Arizona. I do, some late archery deer hunts in the desert. But for, our bread and butter is elk, of course, and that is based right there around Springerville and Eager.
I want to talk to you a little bit about Unit 1 and 27 as far as elk goes, and I'd like you to kind of compare and contrast Unit 1 to 27. Give me a little bit of the pros and cons from an elk hunting standpoint, from a getting around the unit standpoint, from a people interaction standpoint, meaning lots of people around or no people around, and kind of talk to me a little bit about each unit and how they differ from each other or how they're similar.
Okay. Where do you want me to start? You want me to start with 1?
Sure.
Unit 1 is an excellent unit. Of course, born and raised in the unit. It's always, been one of the top producing units in the state of Arizona. Size-wise, it's probably been 3rd or 4th on the list for sheer, size of elk. I think 9, 10, some of those units up north, probably produce a bigger average. But if you're going to go for sheer action and consistency year to year, you're probably not going to beat a Unit 1 in 27. The rut's always on. We got natural water. So the elk every year are, go from, we don't have really any inconsistencies in that, where you do get a lot of that up north sometimes with drought and early rains and such. So
certainly, I know honey.
And it's like I said, with that consistency, it's just always an action-packed hunt. I mean, you're going to see lots and lots of animals on the hunt. So that's what 1 produces. 27. Up until about 3 years ago, it was much the same. After the fire, 27's been beat up pretty hard. They're doing kind of the same management practices, I'd say, as 3A, 3C got. 27 had 500 late rifle tags in it last year. And, I think it was 5 years ago. I could be wrong exactly on the number, of years back, but it was 250 prior to that, always on the late hunt. And with the fire opening up so much country, and everybody, running a set of 15 Swarovskis and shooting a long-range rifle with a turret, elk are sitting ducks a lot. So they've taken some really big bulls in those late hunts, and our age class has really, really been beat up. So
for overall quality, speaking about archery elk hunting, do you think that 1 is a higher quality hunt from a standpoint of bugling and numbers of elk as well as size, or what are your thoughts?
Yes, I do. I think 1 is better. for archery, and one of the main reasons why one is so much better, it's not that it's so much better. I hate to emphasize that it's, like really drastic, but the reason it's better is it's got a lot more cows, and a lot of bulls. We'll catch bulls on trail cams in 27, and those bulls rut in Unit 1. And they rut in Unit 1 because the cows are in Unit 1. And 27, there's just not near as many cows in 27 as there was, 6-7 years ago. So there is pockets of cows, and I'm not trying to, say that these, I don't want to be a doomsdayer, and say these units are really going downhill, because they're not. They're still excellent elk hunts. They're just, the cow numbers with the cow hunts that we've had, they're, you've got to have the women running around to have the men chasing them. So,
yeah, absolutely.
You've got all those, a lot of those elk are going to 1 and rutting, and so one is, it's a milder unit. It's got open parks, meadows, pine forests. Of course, the burn has really opened up a lot of country, but it's a lot milder of a unit than 27. When I'm booking hunters or I'm putting people in for the draw, one of the number one questions I ask is what kind of shape are you in? And I kind of really grill people on that, because not everybody is built for 27. 27's rugged, nasty country, compared to a 23,
Sure. Jeff, in your opinion, with the wallow fire that came through there, it's opened up a lot of habitat. In your mind, have 1 in 27 in essence stolen some elk from the San Carlos and the White Mountain? In that, is the carrying capacity in your mind higher, and do you think a lot of those elk came from the res?
I've been asked this a number of times, and I would say on the fringes of where that fire approached the San Carlos and the Fort Apache, I would say yes, it did pull some elk, but not in the numbers that I have heard. I don't think that, for instance, a couple of the really big bulls that have been killed in the area, I've heard people, say, well, they probably came from the reservation, and a couple of those bulls were killed 30 miles from the reservation. And I don't believe that that's the case. I think that after the fire, with the nutrition that was there, with the seeding that they did with the wheat and barley, and I just think that it was elk are funny. If they get a massive amount of nutrition, they blow out extra points. That's where you get the kickers and the trash. We're seeing that a lot this year. We're already seeing lots of trash on the elk. And that's because of the high nutrition that's there. Lots and lots of feed. And so I don't necessarily think that it drug as many elk as people may have thought over. I do know that they had complained, when I say they, I just mean that, I had heard that the Fort Apache, they had killed, the second year of the fire, they had killed less, 400-plus inch bulls that year than any year that they had ever hunted. And so, there's a little to be said with that. It could have drug, especially along the line, because if the cows came, the bulls followed them. So it's really a opinion. You could have your own opinions on that. It's really hard to say unless they had collared elk and really followed their movements.
Absolutely. Jeff, conditions this year. Tell me about. I believe we had a fairly mild winter, but had heavy rains in the spring and heavy rains this summer. How do the conditions look, and what is your forecast for this season for archery elk in Unit 1 and 27?
For 1 and 27, first off, I haven't seen feed this heavy in 10 years. And when I say this heavy, it looks like the end of the monsoon. The mountain is, knee deep, waist deep in feed. And usually it's the end of this month or the end of August is when we're seeing that kind of feed. Everything's pretty much headed out already with feed. Like I said, it's going to be an epic year for feed. And we came off a really, a mild winter. We did get a lot more moisture than a lot of people think, but we didn't get the snow. We had a lot of warm storms come through, and we had a lot of little rains and little snows, an inch here, an inch there. I know that when people were lion hunting this year, they really hammered the lions this year in 1 in 27 because of a lot of little storms, 1 or 2 inches at a time, which made really good, conditions for lion hunting, which of course I love. So, because
absolutely. Do you hunt lions yourself also?
No, I'm not much of a lion hunter. I have lots and lots of friends that have great, hounds and do it. So what we do is what I'm doing is during lion season, I'm out selling hunts at the shows on the East Coast. So I do a show circuit, and I'm out doing outdoor shows. So I don't have, that's why I never really got into lion hunting. And I always say there's no money in lion hunting. I mean, at the end of the day, this is how I feed my family. And I'm a full-time outfitter. This is all I do. So it's pretty important that I start booking up the next season, for what we have coming. And in lion hunting, as we send a lot of our clients. If I have a client that wants to go, I just book him with guides that work for me that have hounds, which we've had 1 and 2 at a time, 2 hunters at a time be out in the area, and then we just have a number of guys that have packs of dogs.
Sure. I want to talk about Unit 1 a little bit here specifically, and I want you to kind of tell me, for someone that maybe has drawn the tag this year, and let's say that they are not in the position to take a guide, how is the access around the unit, and maybe talk specifically like from head to toe how you would get around in the unit, not specifically areas like you would hunt, but what are the access points? What are some of the things that maybe someone being new to the area would need to know?
Okay. Well, Unit 1, your northern border would be Highway 60. Okay, your eastern border would be the New Mexico state line, and then the Fort Apache and a county road that comes out of Vernon would be your western line. And your southern line is Black River, and the road. This is another thing, people always asking me road numbers, and growing up and living in an area, I don't know if I could tell you, 10 road numbers on my mountain. I'm from there, born and raised there, so very rarely do I ever look at a map or anything of the area just because I know it so well. So I have guys stop me all the time on the road and ask me a road number, and I can't even tell them where it's at. Anyway, so the main access, to get into Unit 1, is you come in, on Highway 260, the road that goes to Big Lake. That kind of splits the unit. It's a paved highway all the way to Big Lake. And once you top out on top, you get into what we call the Big Lake Flats, or, up on top where it's just the grasslands up on top, that set at about 9,000 feet. You have about, 12, 13 miles of grasslands up on top. And that kind of splits the unit. And then, of course, you have 180 that goes to Alpine out of Eager, and east of that is Escadilla, the Escadilla Mountain, which is 10,500 feet, and then you got it, and it drops off, has a lot of vertical feet there, but it's a big mountain, lots of elk on it, of course, a lot of people, hunt that country, and then so you could kind of divide it into, 3 sectors. You got the what we call the reservation line, and to Big Lake, to the Big Lake Highway off to 180, and then 180 over to the New Mexico line. So there's a lot of access. Unit 1's got access everywhere. Lots of roads have been closed off, so there's gates to park at, and has foot access only. But there's not really any giant wilderness areas other than the Baldy Wilderness.
And in Unit 1, I think there's 350 archery tags. Maybe they lowered it to 300. I'm not exactly sure. But is it pretty stuffy? I mean, it seems like a lot of people. I know Unit 1 is big.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. I mean, it's bad. There's no way of getting around it. It usually clears out because you have a lot of guys that come in and either get disgusted with it and leave, or kill a bull and pack up their camp and go. But it is a little stuffy because not only do you have that, you have the cow hunters at the same time. And I kind of quit paying attention to how many cow hunters they had with it and everything. I couldn't even tell you what it is this year, but I know they have cut back a little bit. But yeah, it gets a little crowded. And there are places you can get in and get away, but that's all about knowing, the unit and where you're at. But I know last year, or what is it, the year before last, I came off of a New Mexico archery hunt and came in and hunted with one of our clients and went to one of my favorite spots, and there was six trucks parked where I normally park.
Wow.
And I just turned around and left. So
as a local, that's got to be a little bit discouraging, having, basically the mountain and the unit to yourself most of the year. But, everybody's entitled to hunt. I sure wish, though, the Game and Fish would be more liberal on their numbers. I know that there's some that would criticize me wanting more opportunity. I think one of the things that makes Arizona stand out is the fact that our hunting is so good, and the reason it is so good is we have a higher age class and, not as many tags as a lot of places. But I think there is a happy medium. If they ask me, and if I had a chance to vote, which I don't, I would go for less tags and higher quality, better opportunity when you do draw. But, there's a lot out there that would rather have more opportunity rather than quality. So, I mean, there's got to be a happy medium somewhere, and I think the Arizona Game and Fish does a pretty darn good job. Even though it seems as though everything they do, I can find something to critique them on.
Yeah, I could do the same. And, I have lots of friends that work for the Game and Fish and, people that, of course, being in this business that we know, and their hands are tied in a lot of ways. They have, certain things they have to meet as well. I do think that the tag numbers that they've released are really high in a lot of hunts. I think a lot of it could be cut back. And I mean, just to give you an example, I had complained about it to some people that work in the Game and Fish, and they said, well, Jeff, you should be happy because there's more availability of getting tags for your clients. And I said, well, it doesn't make any sense to me I have a hunter that's applied for a hunt for 10, 12, 14 years, that when he finally does get that tag, that it's not near the level that he may have seen the time before when he hunted it. And right. The reason that is because we've overhunted some of these units, and people can say, you're right, there's a lot of people that can say, well, I want to be able to go to the woods and hunt. Well, that's great. I mean, I think everybody should have that opportunity. But I think we should designate, there's units that people could go do that in if they're not interested in maybe a trophy bull, and they could get a tag every, 4 years in this state if they would hunt those units. I just think that we should set up, I think we should be, really managing for a 7 to 8 year old age class on our elk. And, what I'm seeing, especially in trail cams right now, our middle class has been just hammered. We're seeing lots of that 280 to 300 inch bull, and we're seeing some big bulls, but very few of the 330 to 360 bull. It's just that bull is the bull that has been taken the most in the last 3 seasons in 1 in 27. And, like I said, I mean, there's still big bulls there. I'm not trying to be a doomsdayer about it, but it's I know one of our trail cams that had over 50 bulls on it 4 years ago, and that same trail, and that's been consistent. And that same trail cam has 11 bulls on it right now.
Well, that speaks a lot right there. I mean, that speaks volumes, and it backs up what you're saying. Jumping over to Unit 27, walk me through a little bit of the boundaries and a little bit of the access points there as well.
Okay, 27, I mean, you got, the road that goes from Alpine to Clifton, is it 180, I believe. And then you have your Blue Wilderness, your access from Alpine down through the Blue, and then you have Red Hill Road that comes off of 180 at Beaverhead that comes back down to the Blue, and then it dead ends, of course, at the end of the Blue. Those are your access points on the east side of the unit, and everything off of that's going to be trailhead entry points, forest trailheads, which if anyone's been down any of them lately, good luck, because with the fire and there's more timber falling down on these trailheads than you can shake a stick at. So hopefully you have long legs and you can climb over, down timber, because it's like nothing you've ever seen in some of these areas now. And then your access up on top would be, you can come out of Unit 1 off the top of Big Lake and come down into Buffalo Crossing, and then around the unit to Hannigan, all on forest roads, and those are really your access points. And then the southern part of the unit, of course, you got your main highway that runs all the way to Clifton, and it's all forest trail entry off of that highway. And then you have your Eagle Creek access, county and forest road that comes up through Eagle Creek that gets you into kind of over towards the San Carlos line there, low. That's all the low country. So, which a lot of people are not, the elk aren't in the low country like they used to be as much. We'd kind of like, that's why we say, they issue 500 tags, and they should just call it north, a north and south 27, because everybody's hunting on top of the mountain now, where in years past everybody was packed in and on horses and people were really spread out. But now you have a major concentration of hunters in one area now.
Well, I know in the Rodeo Chetasky fire over in 3C, I know that when I used to hunt 3C prior to the burn, there used to be a lot of elk out what we would call low, and what we in the cedars out in the junipers. Right. And not that there's not elk there now, but it seemed when the Rodeo Chetasky fire hit 3C that all of the elk pretty much went to the burn. And I tell people now, if you're not hunting in the burn, you're not in the right spot. I would assume, I haven't been up and hunted 1 and 27 since the Wallow fire, but I would assume that those elk are concentrated primarily in the burned areas. Not that there's not elk out in the non-burn, but way more are concentrated in the burn.
Yeah, Jay, you're correct. They have, they've congregated in the burn. They're going to go to where the feed is. And, it's not to say, like you said, it's not to say there's not elk low. There are elk low, but I killed a number of, elk low in 27 in my career, and I've killed a number high. And in the late hunts, you never went high. You always went low. And in the archery hunts, you always hunted high. Very rarely did you hunt low. Well, we're starting to see that, kind of the opposite of that. And not to say that we don't hunt low still, because, I had a good buddy that killed a monster 395 bull low last year. Doesn't mean there's not big bulls down in that country. It's just that, and a lot of the elk are going back into their old patterns. For instance, in Unit 1, right there in town, we have hay fields and different things. And for years, growing up, we'd have 60, 70 bulls throughout town all summer long, coming in and out of all the hay fields in town. Well, we didn't see that for about 4 years. We hardly saw any elk in town. This year and last year, those elk are starting to come back in town. So, and of course, they split as soon as it gets time to start rubbing the velvet. They'll split, and I've seen some of those bulls. For instance, we saw a bull in town 2 years ago that bull rutted at close to Big Lake, which is 22 miles away from town, and he was in town all summer.
Jeff, we're going to take a quick break here to hear from our sponsors, and I'll get right back with you. I want to talk to you about elk movement after we take a break.
Guys, GoHunt.com Insider has been the title sponsor of this podcast from the beginning, and I want to thank them for their sponsorship. I wanted to give you guys the opportunity to win a free $50 KUIU gift card when you join Insider. All you have to do is go to www.gohunt.com/insider, find and click on the blue Join Now button, use the promo code JScott at checkout, and they will send you the $50 KUIU gift card. I wanted to give you guys a chance to listen to Dave Loescher, the head of the Go Hunt Insider, when he's talking about the species profile inside the GoHunt.com Insider. Let's hear from Dave right now.
We also have our state species profiles, and within these profiles, you'll have the ability to see exactly which counties are producing the best bucks or bulls in the state, as well as breaking it down into a unit-by-unit basis. And under these species profiles right here, you can select a particular species you might have interest in. Let's just say it's elk. We can click right here on elk species, and it'll show the different states where that species is offered. We'll click Nevada, and on the right-hand side here, within the map, you can see, and I'll expand it right here for better view, it'll show the different units that apply and offer big game hunting for the species of elk. And within this profile, a quick summary about the elk and the situation within that state. The news, the notes, and alerts that talks about maybe some current things that have happened under the state of Nevada right here. The percentage of harvested bulls with at least 6 points on one antler. The number of tags offered across the state for residents and non-residents for that particular species. For Boone and Crockett, we've actually pulled down the typical and the non-typical and broke them into two different categories right here. The number of entries county by county. Now, additionally, we're going to go in a little bit deeper here, and we've actually broken it down on a unit by unit basis. Within this particular county, you can see these units are the units that lie within that county. Even if a portion of that unit is in there, it's going to be featured right here. And you can actually select that given unit, and it will hyperlink you right into that exact unit profile. On the right-hand side of the species profile, you're going to be able to see some photos. These photos are valuable. It gives you a general idea of exactly what type of trophy you could hope for and exactly what the genetics may be in that given state.
Jeff, I want to talk to you about elk movement. You run a lot of trail cameras. How many cameras do you run in each unit?
We run about 150 between 1 and 27.
Okay, so 150 trail cameras. I do a lot of hunting in 9, 10, and 23. I have not done a ton of hunting in 1 and 27. Never actually in 27, but I have hunted Unit 1 in 2002. What I tell people is that from the time those elk rub their antlers to the time they move to what I call the rutting grounds, very rarely do I see a bull stay within a mile or two of where he's summered. I'm curious to get your opinion, and what I mainly see is bulls go 5, 6, 7, 10 miles away to rut. Do you see the same thing in 1 and 27?
Oh yeah. The elk move really long distances. Now, occasionally you'll get a bull that stays put. Doesn't happen very often though. So it makes scouting challenging when the trail cams, they only show you so much. You get to see the horn growth. You get to see what's kind of coming up, the up and comers, and you get to see year to year bulls that are coming of age. And then you get to see bulls, of course, that didn't make it, because if you've been watching a bull for 5 years and he doesn't show back up, usually he's been killed. And so that's where that comes in. But as in, I find a 380-inch bull on a trail cam, and I'm going to go and we're going to camp there, and that's where we're going to hunt. That can be pretty tough because those bulls move a lot, and that 10, 12, 15 miles, I've seen it. In New Mexico, I know a bull that was killed a few years ago. It was a 400-plus inch bull. The bull went 26 miles is where he was killed from where he summered.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And that's big. The big timber stuff might be a little different than the cedars and the pinon juniper country. Yeah, but we do. I killed a bull, a big, the palmated bull that I killed in 27, 3 seasons ago. That bull, summered in Unit 1, about 12 miles from where we killed him in Unit 27. And I didn't know that. I never had a trail cam photo of the bull, but I got a trail cam photo from a buddy who had him on trail cam, and it was 12 miles from where we killed that bull.
Yeah, they're pretty neat animals. I mean, they basically have areas that they like to rut in, and I know that, year after year I've seen the same bull in the same spot or the same meadow, same general area during the rut. So, I mean, they absolutely have places that they prefer to rut. Now, I think that can change a little bit from year to year depending on conditions. I don't know if in 27-1, since it's not near as arid as, say, a lot of the rest of the state, I don't know if they have that much of a change. I would imagine that 1 in 27, that those bulls would pretty much rut in the same spot every year, year after year, because the conditions are usually pretty much the same.
Yeah, we do see that. They do a lot of times rut in the same area. From my own experience, sometimes I'm not probably the right guy to answer that. I'm pretty busy in New Mexico at the same time. Not to say that I don't, come back and forth, but I'll get in there a day. But to say that I saw the same bulls, I'm probably not a very good judge of that, because I do spend a lot of my archery season in New Mexico. 80% of it I am in New Mexico. So.
Let's talk about New Mexico, Jeff. What areas there are your bread and butter units?
Well, in New Mexico, I hunt. There's so much to talk about in New Mexico, because the Gila, which everybody knows, which has been world famous for years, the Gila Wilderness, which is your 16A, 16B. 16D, but everybody, considers 15, part of the Gila. I mean, everybody just references that area to the Gila, which, if you want to get right down to it, the Gila Wilderness is, it's only over, I think, three units, or there's actually a couple units south of it as well. But anyway, so all that region is known, for years of being, big bulls. It's got giant elk in it. And it was that's how it was for years, but it's not the age class in New Mexico is really, its reputation is preceded by the years past. I mean, it doesn't, New Mexico lives off its past reputation. It is still excellent, don't get me wrong, and especially when you consider western elk hunting opportunity. It still has tons of elk hunting opportunity. But it's not, what it was. Unit 15, New Mexico, 20 years ago was probably the best unit in the state in the United States for size. I mean, there was giant elk everywhere in the unit, and they have close to 3,000 tags in Unit 15 a year are being hunted between cow and bull. And it's in, it's too many tags really, but that's how it's always been, and it still does produce some good bulls, but it's really a 280 to 300 bull hunt on average now, where in the past it was a 340 plus average easy,
What other units do you do elk hunts in New Mexico?
16A, 16D, 23, 16E, 17, 13, 12. I mean, pretty much everything from Socorro, New Mexico to the Arizona state line, and from I-40 south to Silver City. I mean, that's a good, it's a big area. And I say I-40.
How many of those hunts? Go ahead.
I said I-40, but I mean that's, it'd be more like Highway 117 that's heading to Albuquerque, everything south of that.
How much of those hunts are draw hunts, and how many of those tags that you're running are landowner tags?
All right, well, that's a good question. For instance, I'll apply a certain amount of people for the draw every year. And, of course, if you get lucky enough to draw the draw, we have a set price that we charge for that hunt. And then where the real money comes into it is buying the landowner tag. So say Jay Scott puts in for elk in unit 15. And you were to draw the tag, then and you can book the hunt and come hunting, or hunt it on your own, of course. Now, the way it works is 10% of the tags, okay, go to. I'm a little cloudy right now because, like I said, I've been up forever, but I'm trying to get all these numbers right in my head. 10% go to out-of-staters, okay? 6% go to out-of-state non-outfitted. 10% go to what they call the outfitter draw pool.
Right.
Okay, so if you draw through an outfitter, you've got 10% opportunity to draw the tag, where if you hunt on your own, you have 6%. Okay?
Right.
Now, if you do not draw and you want to hunt, you can buy a landowner tag. And that landowner tag is a voucher that we buy from a landowner. We give him a certain amount of money for what the Game and Fish issues him. So we're going to use some easy numbers. Say you have 5,000 acres. They might give you 5 mature bull tags in that unit. And you can designate that tag unit wide or ranch only. And if it's ranch only, you can stay behind a locked gate on 5,000 acres and hunt those 5 tags. But if you go unit wide, you have to open up your 5,000 acres to let the public or anybody hunt your land as well.
What do most landowners choose? Do they choose to keep it private, or do they choose to let everybody in?
It all depends on how big their ranch is, because if a ranch is only 5, I know small ranches that get 10 tags because it's all on elk usage, and they have a lot of elk coming in and off of their property. But they go unit wide because really 5,000 acres, you can drive it in 20 minutes. If you had a good road around it, you can pretty much hit the perimeter of 5,000 acres. It doesn't take that long to drive around 3 square miles.
Sure. Sure. So
it just depends on size. If you have the big ranches, like there's a couple of ranches, like the Double H. I don't know what the exact acreage is, but it's 80,000, I think, plus or right in there, and they get say 75 elk tags. Well, they're gonna hunt those tags on the ranch because there's no need to get it good to go open with it because it's big enough to use those tags there. So anytime anyone books with an outfitter that has a private ranch leased, it's good to know how big the ranch is, because if it isn't that big, odds are it's probably not going to be a very good hunt. I only deal in unit-wide tags. I only buy unit-wide because I want to hunt everything that's available to me, not just a 5,000-acre piece. So,
Jeff, ballpark on landowner tags, including the guide service, are we looking at what, 10, 12,000? How much money are we talking?
It depends on the unit
generally.
and the weapon. But it has absolutely went off the charts in the last 2 seasons. Most of the landowner tags that I purchase have almost doubled in price in the last 2 years. So some of those tags, I bought a $9,000 tag this year for just one rifle tag. So after everything is said and done, the client will have $14,500 in the hunt.
Yeah.
And it's to hunt a 330 to 350 bull.
Yeah.
So,
it's opportunity and demand, and supply and demand, and as the economy gets better and as elk opportunities shrink, the prices of elk hunts are going to go up. And
right.
Tell me about the quality in New Mexico as far as the bugling and such compared to, say, Arizona.
Okay.
Maybe on the archery seasons, the muzzleloader. Kind of give me a compare and contrast there.
Well, really quick, I was going to throw you an average. The average on those landowner tags, you're looking at about 5,000 to 55. That's kind of the average going rate for a landowner tag in New Mexico right now. Okay, for down in our country. Up north, they may be a little cheaper, but down in the Gila, that's what you're looking at. To get to your question, so you're kind of looking at like what kind of action can you expect in the rut in the hunts?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, in New Mexico, you've got, they used to have 3 hunts. It used to be 1st through the 10th, and then there was an 8-day hunt and then a 6-day hunt. So it went 10, 8, 6. Now there's only 2 hunts, 1st through the 15th or 1st through the 14th and 15th through the 24th. So those are your 2 options. Now they start hunting September 1st, which I hate those dates. You know, a lot of guys like to come in and hunt on those dates because they're hunting water holes. I'm not a big fan of water. I don't like to, you know, I mean, I'm not saying I don't put clients on water. We do. We hunt water. But you know, if your goal is to come kill a big bull with your bow and to get the full effect of it, it's to hunt them while they're screaming, you know, on the ground, stalking them, calling them, you know, all the aspects of archery hunting. Setting and waiting is, you know, and I've killed bulls on water myself. You know, and it's different for everybody. Everybody, there's certain people, you know, I like to say if an older gentleman still wants to come out and hunt with his bow, that September 1st to the 15th is a great season, because you can put someone that's in their later years on a water hole and still give them a really good hunt, you know, where they maybe can't get around as well, you know. Action-wise, I mean, New Mexico has high elk numbers. They have a lot of elk. So, you know, even though the age class might not be what Arizona is, we still get really action-packed hunts. You're not going to see typically you don't see as many 7 to 9-year-old bulls as you might see in Arizona, but you're still seeing that, you know, that 300 to 320 bull are very plentiful, and, you know, it's a really, like I said, it's still very action-packed, lots of bugling, lots of, opportunity, you know. I would say in kill ratios, New Mexico's probably more like an archery season, more like a 65% kill ratio, where Arizona's, you know, 90 plus. So
I've heard that New Mexico bulls are way more call shy and aren't as callable. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I would say most definitely, if you don't know how to work the elk and you don't know what they respond to. I'm not a big fan of calling myself. So, I mean, I'm not to say we don't call elk in and I don't, you know, call elk in. It's just that I believe in calling elk only when it's, you know, necessary, and to let them do the vocalization themselves and just to move on them and to put yourself in the right position to make a shot, or to position yourself on their going and comings, you know, from, you know, feeding to bedding. They're going to let you know where they're at when they're pushing their cows, and it's just knowing the country, knowing the area, and knowing their movements and where to be, and those funnels to cut them off.
What would you say, Jeff? What would you say your main strategy to hunt and harvest bulls are?
Especially on big bulls in New Mexico, spot and stock. You can either bet them up. It gets kind of, you know, hard sometimes when they have a lot of cows. And New Mexico has a lot of open country in some areas where you can get high and you can watch a bull come across the big valley, lay down on the side of a mountain, and you can put a game plan together to get down there and get tied on him and kill him. Biggest bull I've ever killed in New Mexico on an archery hunt was after a 4.5-hour stalk. You know, to get in 40 yards from him in his bed. 389.
Nice. And then New Mexico has archery hunts and then muzzleloader, and then do they have an early rifle, or are they late rifle hunts?
Okay, say that again, Jay.
New Mexico has obviously the archery hunts you're talking about, but then don't they have muzzleloader seasons that are kind of during the bugling time? And
yeah,
then they
you have. Yeah, okay. Okay, so it used to happen to where they had a mobily impaired and juniors hunt that started very early. Well, that everything now in New Mexico in the last 2 years is they pushed it back a week, and now they've pushed it another week. So where we used to actually catch the tail end of the rut in the first gun season, we now, that mobily impaired and juniors hunt will be around the 10th, where it used to be on the 4th of October. Now it's on the 10th, and then our first hunt, our first muzzleloader and gun hunt is on the 17th. So the bulls will have peeled off by then, and they'll be heading for higher ground to start fattening back up, you know. So it's going to be an interesting season this year in New Mexico with that first and second season being so much later than it's ever been. But the guys that hunt elk and have hunted the area, they should be fine. The guys that, you know, are hunting them like, you know, we do more in Arizona where I shouldn't say Arizona, I mean, I'm just saying that, you know, the glassing style where you're picking up elk, you know, setting for long periods of time and looking at big country.
How many trail cameras are you running in New Mexico?
Now, when I said that earlier, I probably kind of misled people. We don't run 150 just in Unit 1 and 27. A good portion of those are also ran in New Mexico.
Okay, gotcha.
So we're probably running,
total.
Yeah, so that's a total. But New Mexico, we don't run as many simply because there's some different laws on you know, salt and you know, getting pictures and hunting, you know, game. So just like flying laws are different in each state, you know, the same with, you know, trail cams and setting, you know, what people consider as bait, you know, or, you know, salt licks or whatever.
Let's talk about something that I know you're going to have an opinion on, and that's wolves. Maybe talk about what's going on with wolves and what's the real story, what's happening.
Well, the real story is they've been rammed down our throat for 20 years, and the pattern has not changed. And how to fix that, I don't know, other than, you know, everybody needs to gang together right now and come up with a solution, because we have way, way more wolves in that country than everybody thinks. We're picking them up on trail cams. We got them with no collars. All they talk about is the collared wolves, you know, which they, last count I heard was 180, or, you know, and don't quote me on any of my numbers because this stuff changes so much. I've been to a number of the meetings. It's very one-sided. Of course, they have to hear public comment from everybody. But the rancher, the hunter, the outdoorsman, I mean, I don't, you know, see that they're listening to us much. Lots of outside support from other states at these meetings. I mean, I don't know where the people are coming from, but there's a lot of people that aren't even members of our state, Arizona or New Mexico, that come to the meetings. It's a real problem, Jay, right now. I mean, it's way worse than, like I said, than people think. I know of an outfitter last year that stopped me on the road in Unit 27 and said he saw 12 wolves taking down a spike elk that day, and one pack. And it was on Facebook this year earlier that the Wall Lake herd of there's a cow elk herd over in Wall Lake in New Mexico. And that elk herd had 65 calves hit the ground that the lady had counted that put this on Facebook. And I think it was after about a month and a half, there was 11 left.
Goodness.
And she had pictures of the calves with their hearts eaten out and just left. I mean, just killing them and leaving them. And they're interbreeding with the coyotes. And if anyone tells you that any different, that's a lie, because I've got a couple on trail cams that you can literally not tell the difference between a coyote or a wolf. And and I've already, the lady that took the pictures, or that has all the photos from the incident in Wall Lake, she set a trail cam on a dead cow, cattle, beef cow, and at that kill, she has coyotes, wolves, collared wolves, coyotes, and crossbreeds all eating on that cow at the same time.
Sounds like we got a big-time mess on our hands.
Yeah, it's going to be a mess, and we're going to be Idaho and Montana, Wyoming. We're going to be in the same boat that they are in another 20 years. If, in my opinion, everybody just take the matter in their own hands. That's just what I think, because, it's going to be a real problem. And I don't know why, everybody's drank the Kool-Aid on this thing, but it's a bad deal. It's a bad deal, and it's not, we already have, an abundance of lions in our woods. I mean, our deer herds are right now they're doing very well since the fire. 800 tags being released in some of these units doesn't help, but we haven't seen deer numbers like this in a while. If they'd just leave them alone, we'd really grow our deer herd back. But like I said, if this wolf population grows at the rate it's growing right now, it's going to be over. I'm telling you, it's going to be over, man. It's a bad deal.
Not good.
I have outfitter friends out of Idaho that, were thriving in elk, 20 years ago, and are out of business now. No more game.
Well, I know from going to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and going in Yellowstone and Teton National Park quite a bit over the years, I've seen a dramatic difference in the amount of moose, amount of elk, and amount of deer just driving around in the park. And nobody can deny that the wolves have absolutely devastated Yellowstone and Teton. And one of the things that's frustrating to me is it seems as a lot of this legislation and a lot of these laws are pushed by city slickers that don't even live in our country. And when I say country, I mean in our area. And it's frustrating to me that the ranchers and the outfitters like yourself that have to deal with the repercussions, it's just frustrating that's what's driven, it's driven by the city slickers, the people that live in the big cities, the New Yorks and the LAs and
urban
Chicagos.
Lawmakers making laws for rural people.
Yeah, and so
it's wrong.
It's wrong, and it's very frustrating. But we do have a mess on our hands. I want to talk to you before we go. I want to talk to you about your apparel line and your gear and your Hunt Hard, what you've got going, because I've seen you at a bunch of the shows, and you always have a bunch of people at your booth, and you're always just very, very busy. Tell me about what you have going on.
Okay. Jay, we first started Hunt Hard gear, or Hunt Hard clothing, whatever you want to call it. I mean, we first started it for a means to offset money that we were spending while we were out on the road, selling hunts. So, on some years, while you're out going from show to show, I would spend upwards of $20,000 while I was out on the road promoting my outfitting. And so when I trademarked Hunt Hard as a clothing line, and I started, T-shirts, apparel, hats, hoodies, just kind of a little novelty line. And it was a way to offset costs while I was on the road. So sometimes I would have two booths. I would have a booth at a show selling the clothing, and then I'd have my outfitting booth set up. That's where it kind of started. And over the years, it kind of developed, and then I started building hunting packs. And it was a pretty basic day pack. A lady in our community who builds Wildland fire packs kind of helped me get going. Karen Beto, who owns the Pack Shack, she kind of helped me get going on building, and it was a day pack that was modular, came apart in 6 different configurations, and it was what it was. But it wasn't a pack that was a kind of a do-all pack. It wasn't something that you were going to throw a quarter of elk on and a head and go back to the truck with. Wasn't that. wasn't ever intended to be that. Well, in the meantime, 6 years ago, I know this sounds crazy, but 6 years ago I developed some new technology in the backpack world, and it's taken this long to finally bring it to light, but the project is coming to an end right now. That's where I've been gone on a trip, basically sourcing all the manufacturing of the backpack that we're coming out with. And this pack that we're coming with will compete with anything in the industry. It's got patented technology in it, and it's got some features that you haven't seen on a pack ever. And it's that much different, and it's built solely to hunt out of. And it's got some features that, like I said, nothing else out there in the industry has or will have because, of course, of the patents. So I'm pretty excited about that, and we're relaunching in 2016, hopefully at ATA. If everything goes correct, we'll launch it this year. We've separated the companies now because Hunt Hard was always, it was clothing, apparel, packs, and big game hunts. So we've separated everything now. The outfit will be its sole, LLC company as well as the gear and apparel. And I mean, I would love to do another, podcast when I get this pack out, just so you can see the features on it and what it's designed to do.
That sounds great. Yeah, I'm anxious to see what you got there, and I want to thank you for coming on. And I know guys that have hunted with you. I know you guys shot the biggest bull in the state last year, I believe, with that club bull. I believe that was last year, right? That came.
Yeah, it was last year.
Yeah, and so I've seen you at shows and stuff, and I've known of you for a long time, and you have a great reputation, and I'm excited to have you on the podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time after being up for 29 hours and traveling overseas to talk with us, and I appreciate all the insight that you gave us on Unit 1 and 27 in New Mexico. I wanted to give you a chance to let my listeners know where they could contact you, where they could read more about you and what have you. Can you give us some insight there?
The best way to reach us, our website is hunthard.com. That's HUNTHARD.com. And I've never been a real good web guy, so that's hopefully changing here because I'm not going to be running any of that. And we have a new outfitter website currently built that should be online in the next 2 weeks. And that will be strictly outfitted big game hunts. And we are tearing down the apparel and gear off of the site and doing a new site for that. And we're probably going to do the outfitting site under Hunt Hard Outfitters, and then the gear and apparel and everything will be under hunthard.com. Okay. And so that's the best way. If you go to hunthard.com right now, you can find my contact info with my cell, and that's the best way to reach me. And of course, we have the number of other ways people can find us. We have a number of the big booking agencies in this booking for us as well, for Arizona and New Mexico. So that's the best way. But my cell is always the best way to reach me. And I do answer the phone direct. I'm gone a lot. I'm in the field. I spend a lot of time. My boots are in the dirt a lot. So it's important that, people leave a message, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for being on, and wish you the best of success this fall on your elk and deer and all your different hunts there in Arizona and in New Mexico. I look forward to seeing how you guys do, which I know will be good, and look forward to seeing the pictures, and just want to thank you again for being on.
Well, I appreciate it. We're hoping that this year will be a banner year again. The last 3 seasons have been excellent, and we're expecting this year to be no different. So, by the way, did you get a deer tag?
I didn't get a deer tag. How about yourself?
Well, that tells you how long I've been in the U.S. I haven't even checked. I haven't even checked. So I could have a strip tag in my hand and I wouldn't even know it right now. And I don't check to see if my card got hit because I think that's bad juju.
Yeah. So I really appreciate you going on the J. Scott Outdoors podcast before you even check your Arizona deer results. I can really I'm happy about that.
Well, I know you've been trying to run me down for the last 3 months, and I've just been, so busy, Jay, that I do apologize for that. It's I've got a lot going on right now, and to try to, with hunting season coming on and with this new line of gear that we're getting ready to come out with, I've been pretty strung out.
Well, Jeff, that was a great conversation. I appreciate you being on. That was a great interview, and I just really appreciate you coming on.
Well, in closing, I would just like to say, as we've been sitting here talking, I feel like you're interviewing me, and I've used I a lot, and I just want to make sure that, our listeners, your listeners, know that guides make the world go around in the world of outfitting. And without the special crew that I employ, none of this could happen. It's important that, people realize how important guides are to an outfitter. And I just want my guides to know how appreciative I am of the hard work and effort that they put into it. And they're a group of guys that, if they happen to put their eyes on you and you're an elk, it's going to be a bad day. And they've proven time and time again, you don't run, a 90% success rate for 10 years without good help. And really, I want to give all the credit to my guys. And, we live in a state with a number of really good outfitters and good guides. And, I just think of the bull that Philip Barrett just killed with A3, and Jed Larson, found that bull and has lived with that bull for a few years and was lucky enough to find it again, and to have such a good guy like Philip kill that bull. And you think of all the people that we're associated with in this business. And there's just lots and lots of people that, really make this a great business to be in and be associated with the people that we rub shoulders with.
Well, I think it speaks volume for you yourself to bring that up, because, the guides that work for the outfitters most of the time are the unsung heroes. And so I appreciate you mentioning your guides. I know you have a great staff, and I just really appreciate you being on. And it's evident that you run a first-class operation, and just really appreciate you bringing up the guides and how much they mean to you. And really, they're the backbone of the operation, and you know that, and I know that, and the reality is most people don't know that, but that speaks volumes for you to bring that up, and I just want to thank you for being on, and I wish you the best of success this season, and can't wait to see all the photos and all the smiles on the faces of your clients.
Yeah, well, that puts smiles on my face too. So, again, I appreciate you letting me be on, and thanks for the time you've given me.
Sounds good, Jeff. You take care, okay?
Okay. All right, Jay. Thanks.
All right, buddy. Bye.
Guys, I want to tell you about one of the sponsors of this podcast. DeadeyeOutfitters.com is a lifestyle hunting apparel company for hunters, by hunters. Check out episode 45 of this podcast with one of the owners and you'll see what I mean. Deadeye Outfitters makes quality t-shirts, sweatshirts, and hats designed with hunters in mind. Deadeye Outfitters has the only license for creating Boone and Crockett apparel. Use the J. Scott promo code and receive a 10% discount on all purchases at DeadeyeOutfitters.com. Thanks for listening to the J. Scott Outdoors Western Big Game Hunting and Fishing Podcast, brought to you by GoHunt.com Insider. Use the promo code JScott and receive a $50 KUIU gift card when signing up for the GoHunt.com Insider. Research faster, hunt more, go to GoHunt.com/insider and join today.